Hello everyone, I guess doing hopefully you're having a wonderful day. We are back again with another PWCC weekly review where I go through the top 100 soccer items auctioned off this week on the PWCC website. One day late, for some reason, both the internet and my phone data, basically everything went kaput where I live for about a day. So did record this yesterday, was about halfway through, the whole thing kind of blew up. So we go on a Tuesday. Hopefully you can forgive me, but with that said, let's go ahead and get into it. So I have gone through all this before, so I've seen this stuff and sort of know what we're looking at. This week I did remember to get 4 items from previous pages that just sort of stood out to me. I will preface this by saying typically I'm not going to be wooed by, like ultra modern numbered stuff of prospects. That doesn't really stand out to me. Vintage also to some degree because I don't understand the, particulars of certain sets and whatnot. So I have some bias. Get that out of the way. First one was this PSA 8 Xavi, went for 91 bucks. I thought that was a pretty decent price. In terms of the sticker itself, super hard to get in a PSA 8 grade. I'm pretty sure there's no 10s and there's like single digit 9s if memory serves me right. So this is about as high of a grade as you can get for 91 bucks for an all-time great like Xavi. Feels pretty cheap. Thought this was a good one as well. 55 bucks for this Ronaldo Mega Cracks. So I know Mega Cracks, Ronaldo, Messi stuff usually does pretty good and definitely at one point in time was booming. Now not as much, but 55 bucks for this one. In my opinion, one of the best looking of the Mega Cracks Ronaldos. There are better, but this is a good early one, I would say. So 55 for an SGC 9, not bad. This is a sort of in-motion Cruyff. If you have it in hand, you can kind of move it. And so that's sort of a cool aspect. Also Barca kit Cruyff and PSA 9 as well. These typically do come in decent grade. As you can see, Pop 1 a 3, but a 9 pretty good. And I thought this was all right as well. I mean, in terms of, low budget cards, 27 bucks for an already graded PSA 9 Ronaldinho from Monday Chromo. A Messi PSA 9, obviously can't compare 1-to-1, but a Messi PSA 9 does like 1,500 to $2,000. One of the other best players in the set. 20 bucks can't be too bad. So I thought those were the standouts. With that said, let's get into the weekly. So we start with a Petite here from 93 that goes for 126. There will be a few of these scattered throughout. 1925 Racing Team photo and a PSA 4, so pretty good grade on that one. Also a very notable set. Cristiano Ronaldo PSA 7 from his first sort of Portuguese release. We have a Ronaldinho 2004 foil that went for 132, so pretty decent price on that one. PSA 5 Upper Deck, Cristiano Ronaldo. I did look up this Pedri just because we don't typically have weeks where there's not a lot to look up, so if I can look up something in a rookie sort of release, especially out of 11, and see how it's sort of fared, presumably not great, but it wasn't as terrible as maybe it could have been. The last sale was 2022, and it went for 222 bucks. That was, a year and a half ago at this point, and a decent bit of a discount since then. When you take this first sale, it's not going to really be a great comparison because the Contra is out of 9 and this is out of 11, but the Contra's got the full color background, which is typically a bit more appealing. But as you can see, price-wise, it was 1,400 bucks. So we haven't seen one go since then, but you would assume pretty steep discount. Granted, a lot of things are down since the peak, so honestly, it's still somewhat respectable, I would say. But Pedri's not having the shine or the luster he once did. Sort of an example of many examples of why I tell people to be cautious with the prospecting guys. For those that have been around, we sort of know this, but for the newcomers, they're still excited, they're still happy, and so just an example of what could be. 94.95 Petite here, and a PSA 8 goes for 138. A Messi Monday Chromo and a 9 goes for 144. We then have a Clarence Seedorf rookie go for 144 and a PSA 6. Not a whole lot I can really add in this row. A couple modern releases along with a 32 from a pretty notable set. Not a player I'm quite familiar with, though. Hate to say, but, is what it is. A couple Mbappes in this row. We have the Explosive Silver PSA 9 that goes for 150. Don't see these all too often, but seems to get at least a respectable number. And a PSA 10 of this sticker from 2018 that we've seen run a decent bit lately. It's really never been on my radar, but now I've seen it enough to, I guess, not be impressed. But nonetheless, yeah, 150 is not a bad number. This was particularly surprising. I mean, a Messi base card and a 10 going for 150. Not too shabby. You don't see that a lot with 2010s and beyond in terms of modern. But this is field level, which, if you're into select, you'll know field level is a step above. But, yeah, 150 is not a bad price, I guess if you're the seller more so. 2002 Zinedine Zidane PSA 9 goes for 150. Really like the look of this card, so that's a cool one to me. Pop 1 to 3, none higher. Nkuku PSA 10 out of 10 field level here goes for 156. We have a Pulisic auto, so some nice USMNT representation. We'll have a bit more later. Saravan Pele and a 1 goes for 162. We have another Petite here from 1990-91. It says rookie. Something in me says that that's not. Now, I'm not the most familiar, but the pricing sort of reflects that. The other ones went for nearly the same, and if this was a rookie, I'd assume it would get a good premium. So I had to check. We went to PSA though, and basically, I mean, right here, there's a 1989 90 foot. So memory did serve me right. Happy that pulled through for me. Nonetheless, PSA 7 for 180 from second year Mega Cracks Messi. Seems like a decent price compared to what we see for the most part. 200 is pretty respectable. 98.99 PSA 10 Zidane goes for 180. We have this PSA 3.5 with the 79 crack Pog for Maradona. Took a peek at this one. Kind of hard to search up since there is another crack release that basically has a ton of pictures of Maradona in it, but this one for 180. Prior sales, SGC1 did 43, so I guess comparatively that sort of makes sense. When we go further back, there's a, I don't even know, this guy doesn't even have the grade in the title. I guess a one that sold for 166, that feels high. I don't know if that's just trying to get a comp there. Another one where it's just the same guy again. Man, brutal sometimes with these searches, but yeah, eventually get back. There's a PSA 2 that went for 180, so super soft sale comparatively to this. But there was other sales, I thought. Yeah, I mean, SGC 5 that went for 185. So sales are all over the place. This seemed like a pretty good deal, at least comparatively, once you see this comp. So also, you know, pretty good eye appeal on this one too. Not saying anything's wrong with that. But 101 here from Wolves, 2021 Prism. We have a PSA 5 Messi, typically around what these go for. 200 seems to be the lowest they'll typically do, as long as the grade's respectable. It's not trimmed or something. Zara and a PSA 1, we see these go a fair bit. This goes for 200. They're typically 150, 250 range. It's from a hand-cut sheet, as you can see there. There's another person on the panel as well. Mbappe, Red Blue Wave. We have a Cristiano Ronaldo PSA 8. Just keep this in mind, because there will be another comp here in a second. I thought that this was, you know, relatively respectable. 204 for an authentic raw. I think it's non-foil. It doesn't have foil in the title. It's usually hard to tell, but I'm just going to take the title's word for it. 204 is a pretty good price. Me personally, I had a foil sitting on eBay that recently got bought. I shipped it to an authenticator. They said that it didn't match the description I had. I didn't think I had anything in the description that was saying that it was a gem mint card or anything. It was pretty clear by the photos it wasn't. Nonetheless, all to say that basically I had that foil on eBay sitting there for like $250, $300-ish for a long time. And to do 204 with the non-foil on a PWCC auction, also in the format where typically if you're sending something in PWCC, I already assume, you know it's not grading well. So this is probably a mid-grade non-foil on auction that does a pretty good number. PSA 10 here of Messi from 2020, 2021. So we'll see another one of these here in a bit. I think this is kind of a high price. I mean, I know it's a 10. I know it is a good looking sticker as well, but as we'll see, there's another comp, and there's lots of these out there. 2017 Mbappe, same there. We also have a 2002 PSA 10 Xavi that goes for 210. Seems like a pretty good price. 97, 98 R9 in a PSA 9 goes for 210. We have a Chiesa Renaissance out of 10 red that goes for 222. PSA 10 as well. And then we have another Messi here that sort of matches up with the one before, just a little bit higher. This is the comp that I was talking about, PSA 8 Lionel Messi. I found it interesting that they were so close. I don't know, people think I'm a CR7 stan at this point. But before the Messi World Cup, people would have thought that I was a Messi stan, so it's weird to me how I just equally appreciate both, or at least nearly equally appreciate both, but people perceive that one way or the other depending on their own feelings. Personally, I think that this isn't enough of a discrepancy, at least in this scenario especially. I understand Messi and Ronaldo being fairly close, because personally I believe that way, but at the same time, this is not Cristiano Ronaldo's first international release. He has 2004 Euro stuff. Messi doesn't have anything really until 2006, so this is kind of a big deal, at least to me. So I think that this is a relative deal compared to the Ronaldo. Another PSA 10 Kylian Mbappe there. We have a Zidane PSA 9 from 97-98 that goes for 228, highest grade at least for now. 47 Domingos, a PSA 1 goes for 228. I decided to look this one up because we've seen a lot of like 40s, 50s Brazilian releases lately, and it's typically hard to find anything. Here we could only find one other sale for an Americana, so basically this one went for 276. It's a bit earlier in terms of release here, but it also just looks much worse in my opinion. I guess I'm a little confused. I thought that this was like some sort of mess up on the card, but it also kind of looks like a stamp. I don't know what's going on there. Nonetheless, this one goes for nearly the same price, a little bit lower, but looks really good. So it feels like a good buy there, at least comparing to past comps. Saka Blue Ice PSA 10 goes for 234. I didn't look this one up, but I will, just because I know people say I don't give enough respect to Modern. And to be honest, I don't, because I'm just not as amused by it. But you know, England being what they are right now, Saka cards, I want to give it a peek, see what's happening. So this one goes for 234. Last one did 204 in May. Then before that, 250, 255, 470, and then, well, I guess, depends what you're looking at here. I don't know why that would be a legitimate 1300 sale. It seems like it was kind of thrown out. So all-time high back in 2022 is about 500. Now it's 234. Honestly, not terrible results given what other things have done. Pretty good looking card, I will say as well. Not a Saka guy, but maybe one day I will be. That's sort of the thing, or at least my approach to Modern is I feel like I can collect these guys later to some degree. I might not be able to get everything, but to be honest, I don't want everything, so I'm content. We have 2019 Topps Erling Haaland sticker, PSA 10. I do feel like these do pretty good prices. I mean, the foosball 10s are now at like 500 to 600. I mean, at least for me, the foosball comes to mind. This Topps release isn't my favorite. I mean, it kind of looks really cheap, to be honest, but I guess stickers in general are made to be cheap, so I get it. Cavani PSA 10 here goes for 234. I'll look up that one as well. Surprised that this does so well. I guess looking back at past comps, yeah, it's up from 2022, which at least to me is kind of odd, but impressive, don't get me wrong. Generally speaking, 2022 does seem to be the low for certain things, and maybe this is one of them. But I just find this impressive because honestly, I don't really see anyone in the hobby talk about Cavani, and I think he should to some extent, but impressed to see nonetheless. I do find it interesting also that it's hand cut. I didn't notice that the first time. So we have this Michelle Akers here, gold signature, one for 252. I actually comped this earlier in the week because some of the old US WNT players, like, I'm not opposed to getting some autos here and there when I can, especially if they're like older cards that I feel like people just aren't looking at. But this one, yeah, raw comp for like 30, 40 bucks, maybe 50. PSA 9 got a good grading premium there at 252. It's also sticker. At first I thought this was on card, but it's sticker, and that was a little disappointing, but just a note. PSA 6 Monday Chromo for nearly 300. Not a bad price, I would say. PSA 9 2006 Messi goes for 288. I thought this was fairly low. We saw the PSA 7 of the second year do nearly 200. I'd rather pay another 100 and get a PSA 9 of the third year if I was going for all the releases. PSA 6 here goes for 288. I thought this was fairly cheap. BGS 6.5. I mean, it makes sense compared to this. I guess in general, I think the Monday Chromos are cheap compared to, say, the team set release. The Monday Chromos do sort of look tacky in a way, and they are fairly common. But I think at least release-wise, they should hold a little more ground than the Mega Cracks team set. I really have no horse in the race. I probably own equal amounts, if not more, of the team set releases than I do the Monday Chromos, but the Monday Chromos are from a league-wide release with all the players. This is from a team set release where you could just sort of get things here and there. So this isn't as hard to get Messi's from. This is harder to get Messi's from. So for me, that's worth something, but it doesn't seem like in these auctions people are going crazy for them. Fairly low grades, to be fair, but nonetheless. Above that, we have a 2021-22 Mosaic Stained Glass of Cristiano Ronaldo and a PSA 9. Decided to look this one up just because I guess it's a modern week. But yeah, compared to past comps, basically all the way, back in 2022 at the very, very bottom down here, it says like 1300. Is what it is. Eventually, once they settle post-release, it seems like they settled about 300 at the end of 2022 and have stayed relatively stable ever since. In my opinion, I do like the stained glass. I don't own any, but I find them visually very appealing, and I also like the idea of having stained glass in a Mosaic set. It just sort of fits and looks good. I mean, just a lot going on there, but I think this will be sort of an interesting era to look back on, like the Cristiano Ronaldo at Manchester United for a couple years in terms of cards, because I feel like with Ronaldo, you either think of him in a Real Madrid kit or you think of him in Manchester United, maybe Portugal as well, but mostly those two. And so to be able to get some of the, modern case hits in a Manchester United kit is pretty appealing, at least to me. It's a very small niche where you can really hit some cool cards, in my opinion. For even a fairly decently priced entry point in terms of modern, I mean, $300 in modern, it definitely, restricts what you can get, but to be able to get a case hit Ronaldo in a Manchester United kit feels pretty good. I don't know what the product costs to open, but I'm imagining if you open $300 worth of this product, you're basically getting nothing, so I would just buy this card instead. A very nice looking one, and apparently really hard to grade. Just one PSA 10 and 14.9, so that's, fairly impressive. PSA 8 Mbappe rookie goes for 300. This is one that stuck out to me because, I know this is a PSA 10, but how are these almost the same price? Like a PSA 10 Topps sticker of Haaland, which to be honest is like a second tier of sticker in a year where he already has tons of card releases at various levels. Like there's so much going on in 2019 for Haaland that this is almost an afterthought. This is the Mbappe rookie. Now, I know it's, PSA 8, it's not a 10, it's not a... Who cares? It's the only Mbappe rookie, and sure, it's an 8, but come on. I mean, these are, at least to me, these are super cheap for Modern, but I'm also looking at it from the perspective of someone that is willing to buy stickers and actually kind of prefers stickers. So to me, the Panini Sticker True Rookie Mbappe is appealing for many people, as we can even see earlier. I mean, people are willing to just buy PSA 10 Topps Chrome base, and to me that makes no sense, but I've seen this sort of continue to be a theme, so I don't think it's changing, but I don't know. Maybe I'm out of the loop. Maybe I'm just an old man yelling at clouds at this point. I don't know. Keeping it moving though, we do have a Ronaldo Leaf auto down there. This 1 of 1 tries to sell again. We saw it run probably a month ago maybe. PSA 6 again, pretty strong sale for these team releases, especially the blue one, $312 for a PSA 6. Super high grade here of the Stanley Matthews, and an 8 goes for $312 as well, which seems like a pretty good price. I mean, 8's super hard to hit, but gets a grading premium there, which is good. This PSA 8 goes for $324. Again, seems low to me when you compare back to the non-foil. I know it's $200 compared to like $330 or whatever, but I mean, that's probably like a PSA 5, 6 maybe, and you're getting an 8 for little over $300. Seems like the way to go. 95 PSA 9 Zidane goes for $324. Always like the look of this card, and pop 1 of 6 on higher, so pretty hard to get in that grade. We have a green out of 5 Cristiano Ronaldo Select. Stood out to me as being kind of low, at least for like a color match, but with Select there are other levels, so that's to be accounted for, and we'll actually see another one here in a second. Presumably a game used piece of a Messi jersey goes for $336. We have this PSA 9 from 2010-2011. So this is one that sort of made me, confirm my thesis earlier that the, third year PSA 9 went cheap. It was cheaper than this, like, 6th year, 7th year PSA 9? So I found that interesting. I mean, this isn't a card you see graded all that often, but I'm imagining it's just because it's kind of further back, and at that point there's even other Messi cards that are kind of cooler within different years. But I do still respect anyone going after like the Mega Cracks releases by year. I find that to be an interesting venture, and tip my hat to anyone that is. PSA 7 from the 2014 set here goes for $350. This Maradona does $350 as well when we go and look at comps at that, which we will now. Sort of had to sift through some stuff, but yeah, last PSA 6 French release went for $210. Then the regular release goes for $288. I do feel like something that needs to be at least considered when buying the Maradona is that we haven't really sort of fleshed out which releases are rarer, from which distribution methods. It's just, there's a lot going on where there's different banks from all over the world, and at least in my eyes, now I'm not, digging into the weeds too much, but I am sort of reading message boards, looking around a lot, and I've never really seen like conclusive what's the rarest to the most common in terms of backs. And I don't know if that's ever going to matter, but I think it is something worth considering, because in theory maybe this is more rare and this goes for $210, while this one's the more common version. It goes for $288 in the same grade. Just seems weird. But in terms of the PSA 7 grade, last PSA 6 went for $228 as well. I guess this PSA 8 did go for $1,500, which compared to the 7 seems like a super strong sale, but the 7 does seem to make sense in relation to the other sales, so it didn't do anything all too crazy, at least comparatively. PSA 9 from 97-98 for Thierry Henry here goes for $360, and a pop of 1 of 3, just a 1 higher. We have a BGS 8 Campione that goes for, that's Campione, that goes for $384, so this is about where they should go, you would think, because PSA 8s of this card probably do $500, so BGS is going to do a bit of a discount. Clint Dempsey topping a lot of Messi cards, just saying. But this is a PSA 10, which is why it gets a premium. It's also jersey numbered, so it's got a couple things going for it. Typically, raw, I would expect this to go for like maybe 100 plus or minus some. But 408 for a PSA 10 seems like a pretty good sale. SGC 7 goes for 408. Again, pretty strong deal there, I would say, at least in comparison to some of the Messis we've been seeing earlier. Also looks pretty centered, which at least to me is a factor. I know people probably don't love SGC, but is what it is. The Xavi goes for $420 in a PSA 8, so I did take a peek at this, just because we don't see these in that high of a grade sell that often. The last couple were raw or 5s, and they went for nearly $50. Last 6 did $204, which is kind of a high price comparatively, and the last 5 did $156. So these are down a good bit, even from those sales earlier this year. Last 8 sale was a decent bit ago, but April 2023 went for $1,080. So Compared to recent sales, it sort of makes sense. I mean, a 6 being 204 and an 8 being 420 isn't, anything crazy in terms of multiplier. But from the last 8 sale, these are down a good bit. And these used to be like 3-4K maybe at the peak of the market. So down a bit, but at least to me, I mean, it's one of, if not the best Xavi card. And in a pop 1 of 10, just 6 higher. Seems like a decent buy. This Ronaldo 2022 green goes for 432, paired up with the green we saw earlier. Then we have a sticker auto of Jude Bellingham, goes for 432 as well. And then 2001-2002 Klose PSA 10. So this was interesting. I tried to look up 10s. There were no 10 sales. So we got to look at 9s. And there's only one 9 sale, at least for this particular portrait shot. And that went for 150. So seems like it got a decent bit of a grading premium, which is good to see. But yeah, when the 9's only doing 150, it leaves room for a grading premium to be had. You run into trouble when people are paying like 1,000 for a 9, and then a 10 comes out because is someone really going to pay like multiple thousands? That's kind of dicey. But can you pay a few hundred more? Seems like it. We have a white Pulsar here of Messi from 2022-2023 and a PSA 10. We have a Pele auto, and then also the cheapest Aquarella I've ever seen, but also probably one of the worst Aquarellas I've ever seen. I will say the colors are nice, if you want to say something nice about it, but 504 is a pretty low sale. Typically these, do maybe a little under 1,000, maybe a little over, depending on what kind of Aquarella it is. This one does a decent bit of a discount. So PSA 10, Edis Maradona, you don't see that too often, so it gets a pretty good number at 516. This Nilton Santos, I believe it is going to resell, but man, the last one I thought just sold a week or two ago, so that'd be pretty quick. Nonetheless, this gets 528, pretty recently graded as well. We have a Kylian Mbappe Mojo going for 564. This Foosball Holland does a decent number at nearly 600 there, same as this Lamine Yamal at 630. PSA 9 tops now doing 630 is just such a crazy number to me. I know it's numbered, I know it's out of 10, but like, in terms of Lamine Yamal releases, this will go down as probably one of the worst. Now, surely there will be worse Tops Now and worse other cards, but Tops Now is just such a lesser product. And, numbered cards even within it, I mean, it's a nice ad. It helps. Obviously, it gets these types of prices, but like, a lot of the times with rookies, I like to think that, like, does the base card matter, right? For 2019 Holland, I mean, you do care about these stickers, or at least you know what they look like, right? The same thing with the Topps Chrome Bundesliga. You know what that looks like. Is anyone going to know what this Topps Now Lamine Yamal looks like? Probably not. Obviously, the people buying it as it comes out, they'll know, I get it. But, like, over time, will people really recognize it? I don't think so. Although, when you compare it to Charles de Ketelaere 1 of 1, I guess, who's crazier? I don't know. This goes for 630. It is a 1 of 1 from a sort of typical release, which I understand. But, yeah, I mean, there's not many rows where I'd want to pick a Foosball Holland PSA 10, but I think this is a row where I would. Keeping it moving, couple Messis. Go for moderately low. Typically, these go 600 to 800-ish. So this is a bit lower, but it's also, a couple running on the same auction, so it makes sense. 90-91 Zidane team photo goes for 630 in a PSA 8. This 92 Zidane goes for 690 in a PSA 8. We also have this American Leonidas that goes for 720. Again, sort of a scenario where you don't have any comps for the 1947 one, but you do have comps for a 1944. This one went for 720, and this one goes for 720 as well. So basically, smack dab on in terms of pricing. I do like the yellow, though. I know it's a bit later career, but the yellow is pretty striking, and, I'm always a sucker for some nice colors. Sort of a random Erling Haaland Topps card from 2022, at least in my opinion, but I guess it's out of 5. I thought it was out of 25 since it's orange, but what do I know? Nonetheless, it goes for 780, so a decent premium on that. PSA 278 Crack goes for 840, pretty decent number on this one, at least compared to other PSA 2s, but it is a really nice looking one in terms of centering, in terms of registration. I mean, it's just a really nice 2. We saw the Zebra last week. I think the Zebra, and man, I don't remember the grade. I don't want to misspeak, but the Zebra did like 2K or something like that. This Tiger one goes for 930. Now, this is a lesser grade, so that also is to be considered, but, interesting to see all of the animals out and about. And we have a 2020 Cubic Ronaldo Auto from Manchester United, goes for 960. 2006 Monday Chromo Messi going for 960 as well. I think we saw this run before because I sort of remember a similar card that caught my eye in this manner, so we'll see if that one sells this time. PSA 9 here seems like a pretty decent sale, goes for nearly 1,000. We have a Camo PSA 9 that's out of 20 from 2018 Prism. Took a peek at this one, and last 8 did 992, so it didn't seem like this one got much of a bump for being a 9, but last 10 did 4,100, so it's about where you'd expect a 9 to be. Maybe a 9 should be like multiplier wise, if you go by the multipliers, usually 3x for PSA 10 compared to 9, so maybe it's 1300, that's a little lower, but nearly what you'd expect. In this row, I thought this was, at least to my eyes when we were going into the auction, I thought this was kind of cheap, but actually looking back on comps, it sort of makes sense. It's about right where it should be. So this BGS 9 does 1230. Last PSA 9 did 1225. So I mean, relatively to that, seems like a good price. Now that was a rerun, so this earlier price you can't really take into mind. Before that, it did sell apparently on best offer for 2K, but you have to wonder, is that some sort of setup or someone put a really high price on that to get a high price on this Probstein? Probably. There is some sort of maneuvering going on in here, but even in 2022, I mean, PSA 8 tried to sell again twice, or maybe it did sell, I don't know, but nonetheless, it sold for like 870. So hasn't really dropped a whole lot, at least for this one in particular, but I don't think it's ever really been a parallel that people have put a ton of weight into, since it's a bit different than the rest, and it's a national release, not a typical sort of set card chase release where you go out there and pack it. Then we have a 1938 Cindelar that went for 1400 and a PSA 4 with an 08 back. So I thought this was a bit high. I had my eye on it, just sort of hoping. It was not to be had for me. The back is an 08 back, which means it has this blue sort of marking down here. It's sort of smudged, which is weird. I don't really see that ever, but it looks really good on the front. Last PSA 4 did 516. Now this is the more common back, so this is a red backed one with text that says no Princess Ramona on it. It's really hard for me to be able to generalize what the ratios are, but there's about 2 to 3 times as many Ramona backs as there is 08 backs and solo backs typically, and the solo and 08 backs are relatively comparable, both being much rarer though. And you know, I was sort of wondering how much is the rare back gonna get. It did also matter that it was an eye appeal sticker. I mean, I guess you can debate how much it mattered depending on what you think of them, right? But, you know, at least the pricing would show that. So this sold for $516, which even back then kind of seemed like a decent price to me. It might not be to other people. I sort of, you know, understood Koenigs a bit later after the boom had sort of happened and they've retraced a good bit. But at least in this new sort of retracement era, this is a pretty good price. If we go to all-time pricing, there are higher sales, don't get me wrong. There's a 4 here that sold for $2,700, but beyond that, you know, $1,700, $1,600, $1,500, $1,500, $1,300. So, I mean, it's right up there with some of the highest sales ever. Now, it does have the rare back. It has the eye appeal sticker. I'm pretty sure it's also a pop 1 of 1, so it plays into it. But, yeah, seemed like a pretty good sale. Next to it, we have a PSA 3 Aquarella that sells for $2,200. Took a peek at this one just to see what the Aquarellas are doing, and yeah, last one sold for 24, then before that 17, 24, 19, 3,000, 2,000. They bounce around a good bit. I mean, 1.6 back here, but it seems to be smack dab in the middle, if not a little bit up from where they typically have sold. So seems like a decent sale. And then we get into the top 3. So not the strongest of weeks, but still a good weekly, I would say. This PSA 6 Lionel Messi, I looked at the card ladder graph yesterday and was basically right where they've been. I think over the last year they're down like 5%, but it's, you know, relatively in line. Depending on what comps you take, you can make whatever you want. 2017 Chrome Purple PSA 10 goes for $3,100. Took a peek at this one, but this is basically the same price we've been seeing for a bit now. They are up a little bit from last year in September, but yeah, I guess, you know, sort of we're at their low last year. They're up a bit now. If you go back into 2023, though, at one point they were 4, 3. I mean, you know, within the range. Seems like a pretty decent sale, I would say. And obviously Mbappe with the Euros and the Real Madrid move, getting some hype, so that's good. I guess if you're a person that likes Mbappe or owns his cards. And we have a 2021 Gold Prism CR7 to top the list at $4,200. Been a while since I think we've seen a Gold Prism top the list. I don't think we've seen many of those, but yeah, Manchester United playing days goes for a good number. Looking up this Ronaldo is brutal and sort of goes back to one of the things that I don't enjoy much about Modern is sort of how fragmented everything is and how much of everything there is. Like, you would think a Gold Prism Ronaldo from 2021 would be kind of cool. Apparently they're everywhere. Now, it's sort of gold parallels where they mix with other things, but it's just so hard to look up. I even tried the out of 10, and honestly, I didn't even really get most of them. So here, even when you do get the Prism, you end up getting, you know, Gold Mojo. So the Gold Mojo in an 8 sold for $1,100. How does that comp to a PSA 10 True Gold? I mean, that feels kind of strong, I guess. Just looking at that. When we go back even further, you know, you gotta kind of sort through. Keep on scrolling. Maybe you'll find one day. We found another Gold Mojo. This PSA 10 went for $1,600, which that seems like a low sale. I guess that PSA 8 seems like a really strong sale, but maybe people aren't paying as much for grading premiums for these types of cards. Interesting nonetheless. don't really know how to compare, but it seems like it got a decent multiplier for being true gold, which you would understand, and makes sense to me. Pop 1 of 3, so there are a few, but tops this weekly, and overall pretty fun one, I would say. Good mix of stuff in between. Kind of a light week, which I think we needed. The last week or two have been pretty heavy. Looking at this weekly, that's a big one you don't see all too often, but I see people post about it all the time because there's so many Kobe stands. But this Kobe Fans of the Game auto, sort of a coveted one in 2014 Prism, and that already at 1,500 with 5 days left. Beyond that, we have a Titularius 1.5. I think this is rerunning. I could be wrong about that. Already at a decent price, I guess. Got a Neymar gold matchups here, and Dybala gold as well, so some extra golds floating on through. Ochoa 1 of 1. We have a 94 Alval Ronaldo, which is something you don't see all too often. Some signed Ronaldinho. But yeah, it doesn't seem like the craziest of weeks either next week, so, you know, it is what it is. But happy to share this weekly with you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed. Of course, as always, if you did, do make sure to leave a like. I would appreciate it greatly. Helps me, helps the channel. Any thoughts you had on what sold, what you maybe bought, or what you thought, you know, went high or low, would love to hear it down below in a comment. And if you want to see more videos like this as soon as I go live, make sure to subscribe. But with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.